Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Craftsy Chats. My name is Leah. I am your moderator today. Just a few things from me before we get started with your questions. So first, thank you for hanging with us while we waited for a few technical issues to be sorted out, but we are here and excited for your questions. That means I need to draw your attention to the chat box. That's going to be below your video player or the chat on Facebook and YouTube. I see some of you have already dropped some questions and some hellos in. Keep those coming. We get to as many of them as possible in the time that we have. And of course, you're asking questions, so we've got to get you some answers. And today, those answers are coming from Ellie Lum. So, Ellie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I love to have us start these things out by just letting you take some time to introduce yourself, all of the little crafting that you get up to, and anything that you've been up to recently that you want to share with us.
Great. Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the tardiness. I was having trouble connecting, but I'm glad folks have stuck around. My name's Ellie. I run Clumhouse, which is a bag making studio in Portland, Oregon. And we make bag making kits and sell supplies and wax canvas. And we're always designing new stuff. So I'm super excited to see what everyone has questions about.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to get started with your questions. Keep them coming. I will let you know when we get close to the end. So if you're hanging on to a question, you can get it in under the wire. But we're going to get right into it here with Crystal's question first. Crystal says, I have watched several bag tutorials, but it is always unclear to me how you sew across the bottom of a zipper. It appears that people sew right through the teeth, but wouldn't that break your needle? Ellie, what do you have to say for that?
What a fun question, Crystal. Sounds like you're going to be making some fun bags. Well, there's lots of different kinds of zippers. So if you're talking about metal zippers or coil plastic zippers, you can actually sew over the coils for plastic zippers. But for metal zippers, of course, you're right, you could totally break your needle. So I generally don't sew over the metal teeth on the metal zippers. I'll usually go ahead and finish the edges of the zipper tape and actually have a tutorial on that in my Craftsy class for the Fremont bag. So you can check it out there.
All right, let's move to Lisa's question next. So Lisa has made several bags and realizes that a final pressing is probably needed, but I have no idea how to do it, particularly if the bag is vinyl or waxed canvas. So Ellie, do you have any hints, tips, or tricks for Lisa or anybody else that's wondering about this?
Yeah, so we actually don't press vinyl and don't press wax canvas with an iron. The best way to press wax canvas is either with a steel fabric roller, which we sell on our site, clumhouse.com, KLUMHOUSE.com, or you could use a bone folder or even just your fingers, because that wax canvas really has a lot of memory, so it shows the crease. And vinyl, you can also press with a steel fabric roller or a bone folder or something like that. But generally with bags, since we put a lot of stuff in them, they tend to get their shape through the first couple weeks of use anyways, as the stuff inside the bag presses it out into its shape.
All right, thank you for that. That's really helpful. Wendy's got a question specific to material as well. Wendy wants to know if you can sew leather on a basic sewing machine.
Yeah, so Wendy, there's so many different kinds of leather, and I love that you're getting excited and into sewing leather. So leather is kind of like fabric, where there's like lots of lightweight and lots of heavyweight, and it really depends on what type of sort of behavior you want the leather to have. Like, are they going to be straps, or is it going to be on the body of the bag? So generally on a home sewing machine, you probably max out at about 5 to 6 ounce leather, which is a light to medium weight, but you have to remember that you're always sewing one thing to another. So you're going to double up on that with fabric or leather on there. So the best way to tell if your machine can handle it is to find a scrap of the leather you want to sew and actually run it through your machine and see if you're getting a really nice tension. Is the machine still feeding it through? Do you need to use a walking foot attachment or a non-stick Teflon foot? if it's a lighter weight leather with a lot of stretch. So it really depends on the weight of leather and if your machine is behaving well for that leather, right? And I usually use all-purpose thread and a leather needle, which is designed to really puncture the leather effectively and get that really nice tension and stitch.
All right, before we get into our next question, now that we're really rolling, I want to give everybody a little heads up for something fun to check out as well. So not only are we doing a little Q&A, but if you check out the link in the description of today's video, you will be able to find the 5 phases of the creative process. It's a little feature that we have for you. If you're trying to get a little creative, maybe you're a little stuck, you want to check out that link in the description of today's video, and that's going to hopefully jumpstart some creativity for you as well. That's all from me. It's back to the questions again. First, Lisa to say thank you about the tip for not having to iron her bags. And our next question comes in from Deborah. So Deborah is wondering if you can recommend any sources for bag making materials, especially the hardware.
Yeah, so Deborah, not sure what exactly hardware you're looking for, whether it be buckles or snaps or rivets. But on our site, we actually sell a ton of specialty bag making hardware. Again, it's clumhouse.com. And Leah can put that link in the chat for you. And we really vet that hardware ourselves to try to find stuff that really works for you. But we only sell a limited number of stuff. So if you're looking for bag feet or slides or something like that, I actually find a lot of stuff on Etsy. It's great. You can buy from small batch sellers. But again, if you're looking for snaps and rivets and stuff, our site has really high quality stuff.
While you're talking about your site, Linda is curious if you sell the leather or other products so that she can make your bags. So do you want to talk a little bit more about your site and what people can find there?
Yeah, so we do. We actually sell various types of kits and patterns for all of the bags. So you can buy a full kit, which comes with wax canvas, lining, leather, and all the hardware you need to make that bag. Or you could just buy the leather and hardware kit if you want to use your own fun fabrics and just source your own fabrics. Or you could just buy the individual hardware so you could kind of freestyle in whichever direction you want to go. But we sell a lot of leather strips, real leather, super high quality, all different types of colors and weights. And we also sell tools to make all of our bag patterns too. So it's really a one-stop shop.
And that one-stop shop is in the chat box. So you can find Ellie's website. It is clumhouse.com. And that link is in the chat box as well if you are wanting to jump on over and check it out yourself. Let's move on to Tina's question next. So Tina wants to know, do you have a recommended seam allowance for a bag, especially around the zipper end? She's had the seam open up on the end of the zipper, thinking that there was enough, but apparently not. What do you recommend?
Yeah, the zipper ends are really tricky. You're right. It's hard to get them to look nice and also feel really secure. So I definitely recommend making sure that you get the right length of zipper. So the zipper stops are where you want to be for the bag that you're making. Then what I like to see is at least a 1/2 inch of zipper tape extending beyond the zipper teeth, 1/2 inch to 5/8, and that will really give you enough space to be able to finish that zipper end. I actually have a free tutorial on zipper ends on my YouTube channel. So if you just look up Clumhouse on YouTube, then you'll see how to finish zipper ends, and you might find that really helpful. It's a nice tip. And then we also sell brass zippers on our site that are really, really nice for bag making. But you really do need to make sure that the zipper tape is extending long enough so that you have that space for presser foot clearance and to be able to get your needle in there and really get a good back stitch in there. Because you're right, those ends of the zipper, they take a lot of wear and tear and you're pulling on it. You really want to make sure you get a good stitch in there. You don't want it to be too close to the edge of the fabric either, because as you know, if you sew too close to the edge of woven fabric, the weave will just tear out. So you need at least, I would say, a 1/4 inch seam allowance up to a 1/2 inch. And here's a quick tip. If you're having trouble getting into that 1/4 inch and the needle on your machine moves to the left or the right, utilize that. Then you can actually get rid of the bulk of your presser foot. Say you're sewing and the zipper is on the left side. If you left adjust your needle, move it all the way to the left, and you're on a standard presser foot, you just shrunk the presser foot clearance there so that you could get a stitch farther away from the raw edge of your fabric and closer to the zipper teeth. So there's lots more tips like that in my classes on Craftsy.
Those classes on Craftsy are also linked in our chat box as well. So quite a few links for you to check out if you're interested in some of these classes that Ellie is pointing out in her answers. Definitely go click on those when we are done with our question and answer today. Let's talk a little bit about good lining. So Wendy is curious, Ellie, what is a good lining fabric when you're making a fabric bag? What would you recommend?
So, you know what's interesting, Wendy? I'm not sure if you're coming from garment sewing or coming from quilting, but in bag making, sometimes our lining fabric can be thicker than our exterior fabric, which I know is a little bit of a flip from like garment sewing, where often your lining is thinner. But bags really need a lot of structure. So sometimes we'll go and pull that structure into the inside of the bag. And that way we can have more freedom with the fabrics we use on the exterior of the bag. So I don't know if that helps at all, but like you could use like a fusible woven interfacing or some sort of fusible interfacing to create structure in the lining and get a little more freedom for the exterior fabric. But you don't have to do it that way also. Our favorite lining fabric is a 10.10 ounce army duck canvas. And we sell that on our site too. It has a really tight weave, even though it's a canvas, and it has a lot of structure. So it can be stiff, but it's not so heavyweight that you can't layer it up to sew it on a home sewing machine. So that's what we like to look for. But when in doubt, fuse some interfacing onto your lining, give it a little more structure, and your bag will look a lot more stiff and not as droopy.
All right, let's move back to leather for a moment with our next question. And this one comes in from Pat. Pat wants to know if you use stabilizer for leather or not.
You know, Pat, I actually don't, because most of the time when I use leather, it's thicker leather and I use it for bag straps. So for instance, here's a strap on the NATO bag, which is our newest pattern. And this is an 8 to 10 ounce leather, and all the leather on the bag is actually attached with rivets. It's not sewn onto the bag. So as you can see, there's rivets on it here. So I usually use leather for the strapping systems on a bag. I don't usually use it for the body of the bag. The body of the bag, I use wax canvas. So generally, if you're looking to add leather to either the body of your bag or the straps, the body of the bag, you might need some other type of stiffener. For the straps, you will like just use a thicker leather because you want it to really be durable.
Okay, you mentioned wax canvas, so I'm going to jump to Michelle's question next. Michelle says wax canvas is intimidating to her. What needle should Michelle use? And I would add, if you have any other tips for working with wax canvas, I'm sure Michelle might appreciate those as well.
Michelle, you're going to love working with wax canvas. So I really suggest just buying, a half yard to play around with and make like a simple project that you don't mind messing up on, so you can really learn the materials, right? Because as we make things and venture into new materials and new types of projects, we're doing a lot of things at the same time. We're learning new tools, we're learning new materials. We might not be learning a new machine, depending on what machine we're sewing on, if it's in something we just got or a tried and true partner. But we're also learning how to make a new project. So following instructions for the first time. So I really like to take those baby steps and say, okay, I'm going to familiarize myself with this fabric. I'm going to make a low stakes project that if I mess up, it doesn't matter, because the point for me is to get to know this material. So one of the reasons I absolutely love wax canvas, it's my number one bag making fabric, is that it stays put where you want it to be when you're sewing. It's got like a little bit of a hand to it that's kind of sticky in a sense. So it's not a slippery fabric. So if you're getting used to sewing with heavyweight fabrics, and as you know, it's hard to control heavy, large pieces of fabric, well, wax canvas helps you out because it doesn't slip around. It stays put because of the wax. And on top of that, you don't have to iron it because you can hand crease it or use a bone folder or a steel fabric roller like I talked about earlier. So I really love, like, to me, it's the best beginner bag making fabric because it stays put and it folds without the iron. And it really, like, as you learn how to sew with different things and heavier weight things, you're learning how to control the fabric, and wax canvas helps you do that. I know it shows all the, creases and texture, but also that's the character of it, which I absolutely love.
All right, let's go to Deirdre's question next. So Deirdre just joined us, but Deirdre, no one has asked this question yet, so this is nice and fresh. Deirdre has a Janome sewing machine and wants to know if it's the right one to make a bag like the Fremont bag. How can she be sure that she has the appropriate machine?
So I'm wondering if Deirdre could tell us what model, because Janome makes a lot of machines. So I'm not sure which one she's talking about. But regardless of that, the best way to know if your machine will make something is to try it with that fabric, right? So most of the time, the patterns that I design are on a very wide variety of home sewing machines. I've never met a sewing machine, big or small, that cannot make the Fremont Tote. And the secret is that you don't actually sew the leather. So all of the sewing is done on the canvas and all of the leather is attached with hardware. So you get this really professional looking bag that you could sew on pretty much any home sewing machine. So I'm pretty sure that your Janome can probably handle it. Janome is one of my favorite sewing machine brands, and I absolutely love sewing on Janomes, and I often test my patterns on them too. I use the HD 1000 and the HD 3000, and then I have an older Janome that's the precursor to the HD 1000 from the 90s. That's really great for bag making too.
All right, hopefully that helps. I'll keep an eye out if she decides to pop in any more details about her machine in specific, and we can come back to it if we have to. This is another question here from Michelle. Michelle has been making reusable grocery bags and is looking for an easy project. Do you have any suggestions to throw her way?
So I love that you're making reusable grocery bags. That's so cool and so functional. You get to use them every day. So hope you're using some fun patterns and stuff. My favorite beginner pattern that we design is called the Portsmouth Tote. And if you're making reusable groceries bags, you'll probably love this one. It has a really cool envelope fold that you can learn. And then you also learn how to attach rivets for the first time. Super beginner friendly. If you're looking for more of a challenge, but still a beginner easy project, I would check out the Woodland Dop Kit, which we actually have a Craftsy class on that. It's called the Travel Dop Bag. And that one is really fun, and you get to attach a zipper.
Okay. Ooh, Deirdre has let us know what machine she has specifically. So it's the NQM 2016 Janome. You still thinking that's a thumbs up for that pattern?
Yeah, so I've never used that machine, but it sounds like a nice Janome machine. And I would say, like I said, I've never met a sewing machine that can't sew the Fremont Tote. And I've taught hundreds and hundreds of classes on the Fremont Tote where people have brought their own machines. Prior to COVID, I taught in-person classes every weekend. And every month I would teach the Fremont and people would bring their machines. So I saw lots of different sewing machines tackle that bag. So I'm pretty sure you'll be okay. And of course, watch the class on Craftsy, and that'll help a lot too.
All right. Well, good luck, Deirdre. I hope everything works out really well for you on that Janome machine. Let's go to Deborah's question next. So, Deborah wants to know, Ellie, what do you prefer to waterproof seams of clear vinyl or oilcloth?
So I actually usually don't waterproof them 100%, but a nice quick hack is to grab some of the scrap fabric from that project and cut it at 1 inch wide strips. And after you sew your right sides together seam, fold that 1 inch wide strip around the seam and sew it down again. And it'll just act as a little barrier to the water coming in. Of course, waterproof bags have to have welded seams. They actually can't be sewn if they're 100% waterproof. But if you're looking for just water resistance, that's a fun trick. There's also a lot of stuff on the market for no-sew iron-on seam tape, more in the industrial realm. I know Seattle Fabrics sells it, seattlefabrics.com. So I'm not sure if that would work on the oilcloth that you're talking about, but a nice quick hack is those 1 inch wide strips that you could just sandwich around the seam after you sew it.
Okay. Oh, Alma's got a question going back to the waxed canvas. Ellie, what weight is the waxed canvas that you like to use?
So I like to use wax canvas any from 7 ounce up to 12 ounce. But you want to remember, if you're using wax canvas and you're buying it not from our site, from someone else's site, to not buy duck wax canvas. It's too thick for a lot of home sewing machines. But if you go to our website, you'll see all our wax canvas on there. And I recommend all those weights. And we have a ton of colors for home sewing machines.
All right. Diane is wondering, I'm going to ask this out loud, but this might be something to revisit after we sign off. So Ellie, some of those beginner patterns that you mentioned, is that something that you would maybe be able to go into our chat box after we are done here with a little curated list of links for what you would recommend for those beginner patterns from your site?
Yeah. So actually, if you go, we only have, I don't even remember, but we don't have many patterns on our site. So if you go there and you click on the bag collection and you go to the Woodland or the Portsmouth, you'll see on there's a little rating for the skill level. And you'll just want to go check out the ones that say beginner.
Perfect. I'm sure that will be helpful for anybody out there that is just venturing into the bag making world. So thank you for that. Let's go into Jessica's question next. So, Ellie, do you have tips on experimenting with making different bag shapes? Like when you see a bag you like, how can you deconstruct it so that you can make it yourself?
Oh, I love that question. And it sounds like you're getting into bag design, which is so much fun. So my favorite way to play around with that is to actually buy some lining canvas, like this lining canvas we sell on our site, because it's not that expensive. And actually make models almost. And sometimes you can just use craft clips. A rule of thumb for sewing bags is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And generally things are mirrored, right? So whatever happens on the left side happens on the right side, and whatever happens on the front happens on the back. But I would just play around with that. And then you can also get a bag like from a thrift store or something and really take it apart and look at what the pattern looks like too. Well, and hopefully later this year, we will be offering a bag design class. So if you aren't already on our newsletter, sign up for that. And that's where we announce all of it would be an in-person class in our Portland studio, like a retreat. Yeah.
Ooh. Now, to tag on to that, what would people expect from an in-person class? What does that entail when they get the chance to jump in on one of those?
Yeah, so it's really intense skill building. So we're making a bag start to finish all together. My favorite way to teach is to actually make alongside my students. So I will make a bag with people. And that way, if you're a visual learner or a tactile learner, you're actually able to see how I handle the fabric, which is actually really similar to the Craftsy class where you make along with me, especially the Fremont tote. And that way you could actually see what's happening and then you do it. So you sort of like watch and then do yours and then come back and watch and then do yours. But because we sell kits and patterns and tools and supplies, we usually include everything you need to make the bag, including sewing machines. So you really only have to just show up and everything else is there for you.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And you said this is in Portland, right?
Portland, Oregon. Yeah.
All right. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That sounds very exciting. We are not at the end of our time just yet, but we're getting close enough that this is where I want to hop in with my reminder that if you're hanging on to any questions for Ellie, this is your chance to go ahead and drop them into the chat box. There are already a ton of links in there for you to follow as well. And then, of course, if you missed the very beginning here, a reminder to check out the link in the description as well. It's 5 ways to get creative. So 5 steps to get those creative juices flowing. That link is going to be in the video description for you when you are done with today's Q&A. That's all from me. We're going to get to as many questions as we can as they come in towards the end, and that's going to start with Amy next. So Amy is looking for, Ellie, your best suggestions on where to find a large size crossbody bag that zips closed on the bag top. Any ideas?
So looking for a pattern for a large size crossbody bag that zips closed on the top. I feel like Greenline might have a pattern like that. So I don't know if you've checked out their site yet, but they have really great like garment and bag patterns.
Now, a question that I want to kind of get out there for people that might be making bags for gifts and things, repair wise, how do you recommend repairing some of these, especially maybe if they've gone out into the world and then they come back to you? What do you use to tackle those kind of things?
Well, I love that because when you actually get a chance to repair a bag that you've made, you really understand how to do it because you put it together already. So, unlike the repairs that we do on the clothing that we buy from the store, it's a little bit of a mystery, right? One of my favorite ways to repair is to actually make the repair visible, right? Because I think it's really cool to repair things these days. I think it's important to show that an object has been used and loved and that someone took the time to care for it instead of just throw it out, right? It's one of the big reasons why I teach people how to make things is that I feel like we're in this throwaway culture, and learning how to make things and build skills allows us to really be more sustainable. So I say fly that flag, right? And show any patches that you do. I like military style repairs on canvas. So I'll usually lay over a piece of fabric and then I'll stitch on it a lot of stitches, usually matching thread color. And that really shows the repair, but it blends it into the weave because, right, like thread is actually adding threads to the weave, right, with woven fabric. So you're actually just adding these like more stronger threads to the weave when you stitch into it. As far as like leather repairs and rivet repairs, we actually sell this really neat tool on our site called the rivet removal tool. And it will help you remove old rivets or a strap that has been broken really easily and replace it with a new strap. But yeah, I love that folks are repairing the stuff that they've made for people. It might also be a great teaching moment to have the person that you gifted the bag to help you with the repair, because then they can get a little glimpse into the making process and feel more connected to that present that you gave them, which is awesome.
Ooh, I really like that tip. A little moment for connection there. A question just came in. I'm not sure who this is from, but it's from one of our viewers that wants to know how easy it is to edit patterns if they need to make them bigger, if they're not the size that they need.
Yeah, so it depends, of course, on how complicated it is, but a good rule of thumb is, especially with bags, like I said, most things are mirror images. So whatever happens on the left happens on the right. And things tend to be centered, right? Like tote straps on a tote bag are centered, backpack straps on a backpack are centered. So if you need to move something smaller or larger, You just want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that really preserves the placement of the straps. So, for instance, if I have a tote bag and I want to make it larger, I might not actually move the distance of the tote strap. I might just move the edges out more, right? And the same on a backpack. Say I need to make a backpack taller or shorter. There's only so short of a distance you can get between the top attachment point and the bottom attachment point of a backpack where it starts to get too small to wear. So if you need to make it bigger or smaller, depending on if you're trying to fit a larger or smaller body, you have some wiggle room there. But try to keep in mind, how is this modification going to change the way that this bag fits on the body that you're intending to make it for? Right? Because that's a really big question, because one of the main uh, design rules is how does it feel on your body? How comfortable is it? Right? As we're looking to figure out what our designs look like. And also, it sounds like you're getting into bag design, which is awesome. So you should get on our newsletter so that you could find out about our in-person bag design classes.
All right, Jessica actually has dropped in a comment. The bag design class sounds very fun. So definitely hop in on that newsletter if you want to know when you can get in on that class. We have time for a couple more questions. Let's go to Kate's next. So Kate's been looking at your website and can see the waxed canvas, but is curious where she should go to look for the fabric that you recommended for the lining.
Oh, so there's a fabric link on our site, or you could just go to tools and supplies and search lining. But it's just a natural off-white canvas. We only sell one lining fabric, and it's a 10.10 ounce Army Duck canvas natural.
All right. That will be very helpful for people looking for that. Terry's got another clarification question. The site that you mentioned for the crossbody bags, was that Green Lime, Green Life? What was it that you were pointing us to?
Oh, yeah. So a really large crossbody bag, I think Grain Line has a pattern like that.
So Green Line, Line.
GRAINLINE. Yeah.
All
And we
right.
sell the Fremont Tote is our largest crossbody. So I'm not sure how large you need it to be, or the NATO bucket bag is a pretty large crossbody too, and that's on our site.
Okay, well, we have reached the end of the questions we have right now. While I wait for any last minute questions to come in, I always like to finish these Craftsy chats by giving you the chance to let us know what you've got coming up, where people can find you. I know we talked a little bit about the class that's coming up in the newsletter, but anything else you'd like to share with our viewers that you have coming down the line you want us to keep our eyes peeled for, I'll give you the floor for a moment here.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Well, we're really excited for the intermediate bag making course that we are launching in April. It is how to sew through a few of our patterns with live Zooms with me, and it's just more of a course instead of a one-off class. Yeah, so we'll get into leather lectures, hardware lectures, and eventually it will lead into or qualify you for the bag design classes that are coming up later in the year. We just closed registration for a beginner bag making course, but we'll open the registration again in the fall probably. And so all of those like announcements will come through on our newsletter. Yeah, so I hope that if you all are really interested in articulating and building your bag making skills, building them to the next level, that you'll come join us in our intermediate course or our design course.
Great. And as far as social media goes, we have your website linked, but is there anywhere else people can look to find you on social media that you like to keep everybody updated on?
Yeah, I mean, we're always posting on Instagram, Clumhouse, and then we also have a Facebook. We actually have a free bag makers group on Facebook that everybody should join, where there's like a big community of support for bag making. People share all their makes and answer each other's questions, and we jump in there and answer questions too. So it's a Clumhouse Bag Makers Facebook group.
Okay, and we did get one last question that dropped in while you were talking, so we'll have time to get this one in from Benny. And Benny is wondering again if you could just recommend where to look for clips and buckles. I know we talked a little bit at the beginning about this, but some people didn't join us until midway through. So, where would you find some clips and buckles? What can you recommend?
Yeah, so we sell 3/4 inch buckles on our site, but that's the only size that we sell. So I'm not sure what size buckle you're looking for, but we always vet and source the highest quality hardware. So you can check our website for that, which is clumhouse.com. Otherwise, I like to go to Etsy, honestly, because I feel like there's a lot of small makers and maker crafter resources on Etsy for all different types of stuff.
Ooh, and one more question. I think we have time for this one as well from Heather Ann. Is the canvas lining fabric that you've talked about, is that dyeable?
Ooh, I think it probably is. I've never dyed it because I really like lighter colored fabric in my lining so I can find stuff in my bag. But it is a natural canvas. Oh, you know what? I actually did shibori it once with an indigo and it dyed really well. So I'm going to say yes because I've done like an indigo dye on it and it turned out really good. But it is a natural canvas, so it should take dyes pretty well. There's no synthetic in it. I mean, generally, when I dye natural fabric, I put it through the wash once before I dye it and just to like prep it.
All right, hopefully that helps anybody out there that is looking to make some of these bags, try dyeing their canvas, trying any of these projects. Please definitely share all of this with us. Hashtag share Craftsy is always a great hashtag to use when you're making any of these Craftsy projects that we're talking about, or just to keep the community rolling, even when we're done with these Q&As. We always have some more Craftsy chats for you to join in on. We have reached the end of the questions for today. So it is time for us to say thank you to Ellie for all of the expertise that you brought for us today. Thank you to all of you for your questions and especially for hanging around right at the top of the hour when we had a little bit of those technical difficulties. We will be back for more Craftsy chats another time. All of the information that Ellie was pointing out, there are many links that are in the chat box. So even if you didn't have a question today, you might want to take just a little breeze through the chat box and click on some of those links so you can see what Ellie was talking about. And in the meantime, have a ton of fun making some new bags. I hope you enjoyed today's Craftsy Chats. Thank you again, Ellie, for joining us. My name is Leah, and on behalf of our entire Craftsy team, thank you for joining us. We will see you another time, and happy crafting.
Oh, thanks, Leah. Bye. Thanks, everyone.